what strategies do you use to help clients to improve relationship, whether it can be personal or professional?
Well, we do something a little silly, something simple. I talk about a three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool, each one of the legs of the stool stands for a part.
So you know that motivation is very important. So how you keep your clients motivated and what the regular feedback play in this process?
And I don't think it's very healthy
Mm-hmm.
to really become that close to your clients,
Okay.
because if you do, then what ends up happening is they can become codependent on you. Hi, I'm Stuart Airey, and I am a life transitions coach. I do one-on-one counseling with people through video calls, and I also have a website called stuartairey.com that talks about a lot of the other things that I do, like conferences and nature stuff. So anyway, you can check that out if you want to, but I want to thank you, Priya, for having me on today. This is great.
It's my pleasure. So start, what inspired you become a life transition coach and get started in this field?
Well, I have a big family by American standards anyway. I have two older brothers and two older sisters, and I'm the baby of the family. So when I got, old enough to kind of figure out what was going on, I saw a lot of people arguing. I don't know. Do you have a big family, Priya?
No.
Did your brothers and sisters argue? No, boy, mine did. And so I got used to seeing them argue, and my parents argued all the time. And I was so curious why they were arguing. Why did they get so mad? And since it had been going on a long time before I ride, because I'm the baby by 5 years, it was almost like I was an observer and watching all this stuff go on. I used to hide behind the couch and just listen to parents argue. Part of it was because I was afraid, but part of it was because I was so curious as to why these conflicts were happening in my family. And so that kind of led to a natural curiosity. I discovered that there were whole sciences that were dedicated to this, right? So psychology and sociology and anthropology, you start looking around, philosophy, religion, there's so much. And I started kind of studying that even as a kid. And I guess that knowledge just made it easy for people to talk to me. And so even when I was in high school, I used to have friends that would come over to my house and tell me all their troubles, and stuff like that. And it just morphed and kept growing and kept growing and growing until now, over 3,000 sessions. I've had over 2,000 speaking engagements. I've been all over, the world. And it's been a great experience for me.
Wow, that's a huge number, 3,000 sessions. Wow. Great.
Yeah, yes.
So how do you approach supporting clients who are going through this life changes, such as leaving a particular faith or religion?
Yeah, we do a lot with transitions because that's typically who's coming my way. And so the transitions can take a lot of different looks. It can be what you mentioned, religion. It can be marriage. It can be going to a new city or getting a new job. There's so many things. And the first thing we want to do is understand, what do they want? What's their goal? How do they want to feel about where they're going? And make sure that there's not something else. You mentioned religion. Are they coming out of one religion into another one because maybe they're getting married? Or are they just curious about the relationship and somebody they know, and or are just switching churches? Are they going from being Baptist to being Methodist or something like the Catholic Church? It depends. But once we can kind of figure out what they're doing, and then we can assess something to that particular person, help them out. And so, and the other thing too, this is a big one, you might not think, but this is a big one. How do they tell their family, I don't want to be a Catholic anymore. I don't want to be a Methodist anymore. I don't want to be a Buddhist anymore. How do they tell their family that they're moving on? That's one of their biggest concerns, actually. And then I do have a master's degree in theology. So if they have a question about religion and more of a formal sense, I can help them with that too. So yeah, that's how we kind of help people through transitions.
Wow, that's amazing. So, could you please tell me what strategies do you use to help clients to improve relationship, whether it can be personal or professional?
Well, we do something a little silly, something simple. I talk about a three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool, each one of the legs of the stool stands for a part of the relationship. So I break it down physical, intellectual, and emotional.
Mm. Okay.
And sometimes relationship, what ends up happening is one person emphasizes one part, and so the others get out of balance. And when you have a three-legged stool and those legs aren't all the same length, they start to wobble. And that's what happens to our relationship. It starts to wobble around. And so we help them to discover which legs is involved. Is it physical? Is it intellectual? Is it emotional? And then after we walk through that, we kind of help them how to extend those legs back out, because a lot of this they did naturally before, but now for some reason they're not doing it as effectively. And we just help them to rekindle that, show them how to lengthen out those legs and get the relationship on a stable base. And in the area of relationships, we like to use assessments because sometimes people have a hard time talking about this. It's a sensitive subject for them. So if they write it out, a lot of times it helps them to process their feelings. So we do use assessments a lot when it comes to relationship stuff.
Got it. I believe by listening to your answers, it required a lot of patience from your side as well.
Well, you got to listen, right? And I think that that's something that all good life coaches are going to do. They have to be very curious about who they're talking to and what's going on in their life. If you're not naturally curious about humans and how they work and how they tick, well, yeah, it'd be boring, yes. But I'm so curious. It's so interesting to me how some life event can happen to somebody, and all of a sudden, I mean, they act like they don't want to live anymore, and you got your whole life in front of you, but yet they're so crushed because of one event that's not even going to last. I'm not saying they're suicidal. I'm just saying they're so discouraged and so crushed. If they can see, they can grow past that and they can learn from that and then move forward. That's kind of what being human is about, right? Growing and learning and getting better. And so if you can help them to see this as a stepping stone, it helps them to process it. Yeah.
Yes, got it. So, how do you help your clients to manage boundaries or stress, or how to manage stress between the personal and professional life?
Well, balance is one of those terms that I don't find as applicable, I think, as it once was, because it's just overused. Everybody's talking about balance. So Priya, think about an Olympic athlete. How balanced is an Olympic swimmer going to be? Are they going to swim a lot? Yeah, because they're an Olympic swimmer, right? So their life is going to be totally out of balance, maybe when it comes to physical exertion. But in order to meet that goal, if that's really their goal, they're going to have to be out of balance. They're not going to be in the balance that someone might think they should be. Business people are the same way. Sometimes they have to sacrifice certain things in order to reach a goal. Politicians sometimes have to put things on the back burner. So what we like to do is we like to talk to them about how are you going to decide how many hours you're going to put into whatever this is, because every time you put more time into this, something else has to compensate for that, right? So that's the balance that we try to get them to see. It's not about 8 hours for this and 8 hours for that and 8 hours for that. It's more like, how is this going to fit into your goal? And then what are you going to do later on? Because you're going to have to make up that time, right? You're going to have to do the other things that you've been putting off. So how are you going to work that back into your life at some point? So that's kind of how we do balance. Strengths and weaknesses, I find them to be more of a symptom than an actual cause. I think if we can find out what's causing it, what's wrong that's making them feel that they have limiting beliefs or weaknesses, then we can cure that. I think that it's just a matter of finding out cause. That it's usually a hurt. Yeah. It's some kind of pain from their past. It's a statement that somebody said. Somebody told them they were dumb. Somebody told them they were ugly. Somebody told them they never amount to anything. So if you can find out what's going on there and heal that, that a lot of that just kind of goes away. And
Yes.
yeah. So I think that that's sort of our approach. That's how we want to go with that. And it seems to work really well. Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing point of view you kept, in front of us. So you know that motivation is very important. So how you keep your clients motivated and what the regular feedback play in this process?
So motivation, again, I don't think it's very healthy
Mm-hmm.
to really become that close to your clients,
Okay.
because if you do, then what ends up happening is they can become codependent on you.
Hmm.
And that's not good for them or for you. So I don't really see my job as to keep them motivated. I more see my job is to understand why they're not motivated. Right? You came in here and you told me this is what you wanted to do. You don't understand why you can't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go work out or whatever. Right? You told me you wanted to do that. Why aren't you doing that? Why, if you said you wanted to do it, why aren't you doing it? Sometimes you see there's some perfectionism in there. Like they don't want to start if they don't think they can do it perfectly. So then they don't even try. Sometimes it's a matter of procrastination due to something else, or maybe it's just wishful thinking. It's not the right time in their life. And so we want to try to understand that and help them from that perspective. And then they get fired up themselves. They have the energy to do it. And you can use friends, you can use apps, you can do different things to stay motivated. So we want to find out what's the root cause and then heal that. Then they'll stay motivated.
Yes. So start how you help your clients recognize their strength or overcoming limiting beliefs or develop confidence.
Well, limiting beliefs, again, I think that has to do with some hurt or injury, probably from your past. It's something that somebody told you. We have to talk about it. We have to uncover it. We have to figure out where it came from so that you can deal with it. And that's where, Carl Jung, he said he thought that this kind of counseling should be a conversation. It should be one person talking to the other. Some folks, some coaches, they just want you to talk and you talk and you talk and you talk. And that's a style and there's nothing wrong with it. But I think I kind of fall more over to Carl Jung. I think we need a conversation to find out what's going on, because sometimes we don't even know where these beliefs came from. We don't know where the weaknesses came from. We
Mhm.
have to discover them for ourselves. And you're going to do that by somebody kind of drawing it out of you and going down these little rabbit trails until we can find out where this actually lays. Now, you asked about confidence. I really think confidence is about experience and getting positive feedback. If you can get a little bit of experience and somebody give you really constructive feedback, I'm not talking about just, flowers and everything's beautiful and you did fantastic. You need somebody that's really going to tell you the truth, not immediately. You might be a little, sensitive if it's right off the bat, but eventually somebody that's going to tell you the truth. Okay, here's an area you might consider changing or something like that. And then, boy, you just bloom. People just bloom. Once they can get some constructive feedback, they know what they should change, they bloom. And so that's how we handle it.
Got it. The way you are saying, giving the answers, I'm quite sure you're very, passionate towards your work. So is there anyone who influenced your life or you're this, give you the meaning of the life or anything like that?
Oh, okay. Did I have somebody that kind of came along?
Yeah.
Later on, yes, but in the beginning, it was my family arguing with one another all the time that really caused that to happen, because I wanted them to stop arguing. And I thought if I could understand why they were arguing, I could come in and say, hey, why don't you think about this? And why don't you think about that? Y'all really aren't that far apart. And so that, just wanting people to stop arguing all the time was the big motivation. But then for some reason, I just have this natural curiosity about people. I love the human mind. I love the way that it works. I love thinking about it and talking about it. And I think that just grew into it. So I didn't really have a big mentor like that. Nobody's really coming to mind.
Got it. So I believe there will be hundred of success stories, but can you please share any one particular story of your clients where your coaching helped them to achieve their goals?
Yeah, well, I obviously want to be very sensitive here because I don't want my clients out there thinking, oh, he's going to go on a podcast and talk about my story. So I'm going to share a story from someone who's passed on. Okay, so this session took place, I'm going to say 20 years ago. All right, so I had a woman come in and talk to me, and she was older, senior citizen aged, and she had killed somebody, and self-defensively. So a man attacked her in her own home, and so she defended herself, and he ended up dying from the injuries of attacking her. So she ended up grabbing a knife, and I won't go into the details. But this was a traumatic event in her life, even though she was the victim. She was the person that was hurt. She was the person that injured, but she did this incredible act. And so she had lived with this guilt since she was a young woman. And when she came in to talk to me, I was able to help her. I mean, you can't totally get over something like that. You'll never completely get past it, but you can learn how to incorporate it into your life. You can learn how to see it as a memory rather than as something that's actively happening right now. And so watching that guilt, watching all of that come off of her was a powerful experience, and for me too, honestly. And because I was just guiding her, she was making all the progress. She was the one that was doing the work. She was the one that was feeling those things. She was doing all the stuff, but it was so wonderful to see somebody that had carried something like that for decades in her life, from when she was a young woman, to see her finally be able to lay all of that down. So, I mean, that's one story from a lot of stories.
Wow, the work you do is incredible. Like how you're helping the people to overcome from the past, to from regrets, and starting the new life. And I think that's a great value you are adding to the people life.
Well, that's sweet of you to say, but they do it. They're doing the work. I'm not doing the work for them. Like I said, I don't really provide a whole lot of accountability. They're doing the work. I help them with the motivation, but really they're the ones they're being motivated. They're figuring it out. And it's just wonderful to watch them progress, watch what happens within them. So thank you for saying that, but really they're doing the work.
Like you just shared the story of the woman, how her past haunted her. But here comes a very genuine question, that can we overcome from our past? Because it takes a lot of time to overcome from the past. Like for some people it might take months, years. For some people it might take a longer time. So what do you think, that can people overcome from the past?
Oh yeah, I think you can. It is going to take time, depending on how tough it is on you, what it was, and a lot has to do with your personality too.
Mm-hmm.
But really and truly, I think anybody can overcome their past, and I don't even think it has to do with your age. That's sort of why I gave you that example, because even though she was older, she was able to overcome her past, and I think really anybody can if they want to. I
Yes.
think that's available. Yes.
Yeah. So that's all from my side, Stott. Do you want to add anything from your side?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity. It's been so great to get to talk to you. We had a little scheduling problems there, but I'm glad we connected and were able to do this.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you
glad
so
to.
much.
Thank you so much for your time.